Here's one from, funnily enough, somebody else named Tarek. Lasting peace cannot be achieved. Whoops, where'd it go? I just had it. Okay, we're going to switch to another one. Let's go to this one from Etobicoke. I was right in the middle of a great question from Tarek, and now we're going somewhere else.
It's just a name.
It's nothing personal, I'm sure. Here's the question. Why does China, Iran, India not help Afghanistan to develop infrastructure and industry that can feed their demand for high growth?
It's actually an interesting question. You know, one of the real problems is the high-profile role of India in southern Afghanistan, and not only in southern Afghanistan. It's one of the most visible presences in Afghanistan. Historically it is, and right now it has consulates
120 member staff in Jalalabad.
So what's going on?
So what's going on? Afghanistan, unfortunately, is caught in the much larger Indian-Pakistan rivalry. Pakistan supported the Taliban, the ISI, intelligence services, supported the Taliban originally as a buffer against India. And India sees Afghanistan as a forward zone of protection against Pakistan militants. But one of the most useful things the Indians could do to help resolve the tensions that we've been talking about between Afghanistan and Pakistan, lower their profile to less, not more.
But I would like to add, and we're supposed to appreciate the Indian people contribution. They contributed 100 bus to Afghanistan. And also, they are continuing supporting the Afghan education right now at the Ministry of Education. And they are trying their best to help the Afghan people. We have a great relationship with India historically, there is no doubt. And still, India doesn't have a lot of facilities. We're supposed to understand that. But they are willing to support Afghanistan and the Afghan people.
Murtaza.
I think the question was China, Iran, and India. And I will add Pakistan to it, because you have to look at it. It's a question about economic development. Iran is playing a major role. If you look at the western border of Afghanistan, almost all construction in Afghanistan is being done by Iranian companies. Actually, you could see more Iranians building roadways and infrastructure on the way. There's nobody else but Iranians doing it. And my friends from Afghanistan would correct me if I'm wrong. China has a big role to play because China is buying and providing goods to Afghanistan. A lot of imports in Afghanistan come from China. So China is playing its role. But Pakistan is playing the most fundamental role in keeping Afghanistan intact. 85% of Afghanistan's exports are heading to Pakistan. Consumers in Pakistan are sustaining 85% of Afghanistan's exports, which is much more than, we have the same relationship with the United States. 81% of our exports go to the US, and see how we negotiate with the US in our dealings, because we are so economically dependent. So I think both, not just Iran and China and India, which has much larger role. I think India has a much larger role to play in Afghanistan than it is playing right now. But Pakistan cannot be underestimated in this thing. 85% of exports is basically carrying the economy for them.
Okay, Tarek and then Yar.
Historically, the Pashtun nationalists, Ghaffar Khan, and from the 30s and 40s were linked with Mahatma Gandhi and the Indian National Congress. From the 40s on, Pashtun nationalism has found support in India through respective governments. And both Kabul, under the monarchy, later under the communist rules, were linked up with New Delhi. So this is not a new equation. No. As far as Iran is concerned, Afghans are very clear of the humiliating racist expulsion of 500,000 Afghans thrown out within a week. So this notion that Iran is somehow benevolently developing Western Afghanistan is not true. The hurt of the Afghans after being asked to leave that country, families deported, split apart. Almost 500,000 of them were sent out over there. The Afghans are not going to forget that easily.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a person who lived in that country more than half of my life, and what happens, Afghanistan is an unlucky country about the neighbors. To tell you the truth, that India's first government in exile was established in Kabul. Almost all those neighboring countries had refugees in Afghanistan. Iran, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, India, maybe some Chinese from Xinjiang province. They had refugees in Afghanistan, and they were treated very, very well. Very good hospitality. But this is not the case about Afghans being in those countries. I believe that our neighbors did not play the role that they're supposed to play when a neighbor is in a problem. Chinese stepped up just last year when there was a bid for a nickel production industry in Afghanistan worth at $4 billion. They just stepped up, they just put bids and they just won.
Running out of time.
Steve,
that's
just
a
one
small
quickie,
example.
Just one quickie.
Please.
It's really interesting. China and India are investing in enterprises,
Just
while the West is giving development
one thing-
assistance.
Well,
That's
exactly.
an interesting point for people.
They are investing
One
in
thing
enterprise
more.
because this benefits them. They don't care about Afghan problems, about neighbor problems.
It's capital.
One thing
benefit.
more,
Quickly.
India, Pakistan, and Iran and China, they are looking to the security in the international community. If there is a stable security in Afghanistan, every neighbor trying their best to have a good relation with Afghanistan for their own benefit.
Tariq, you apparently have influence that even you don't realize because we have the question from the other Tariq back now, so we'll go into that here. Here's this question. Lasting peace cannot be achieved in Afghanistan without ending the vicious cycle of poverty. How do we achieve this most effectively and in the shortest period of time? Zafar.
Change the direction of the mission in Afghanistan. Turn it towards development rather than fighting against the Afghan people. As Yar said, poverty is the greatest sort of threat to Afghanistan. Instead of fighting people, killing them, and turning them into your enemies, I think have certain well-established benchmarks and say, this is what we want to achieve in Afghanistan, and this is how we're going to go about doing it.
Dennis?
We're not going to do it by fighting.
You know, benchmarks, I think, are very important, and they enable us, so there's no argument about benchmark. The problem is with the question. There is no short-term, quick way to eradicate poverty in one of the poorest
Not eradicate,
countries.
but how about improve?
I think we have to be very measured in the expectations. There's deep poverty, there's a destroyed infrastructure. Much of the country is, in fact, in the south, is insecure. We are talking, if we're serious, about a generational commitment, certainly in terms of development assistance, reconstruction,
Janice,
and enterprise.
why isn't there any development in the areas where there is no insecurity? Surely, I mean, you should provide some development in an area
Well, there
where
is.
there's no problem.
No, but there
Hang
is.
on.
Oh, absolutely. Have you traveled through those areas?
No, I haven't, but I know
have.
I can read the
Yar
statistics.
Taraki, please. Yar
There
Taraki.
is.
More specific, empower Pashtun youth, Pashtun intelligentsia, Pashtun NGOs, not only Pashtun, NGOs from poverty-affected areas in central Bamiyan province, in the Badakhshan province, in the central Gorat provinces. You have to go one by one. You know what they did? They bring NGOs from Bangladesh to empower Pashtuns in Kandahar. One of them get killed and the other was running away. So empower local entities, mostly youth who had grade 6, 7, 10 education.
Tariq
Which
Fateh.
begs the question, who is going to save that Bangladeshi from getting killed? No angels are going to come from the sky and say, peace and prosperity for all. You will still need the ISAF forces over there to protect the people who will provide these services. This pie-in-the-sky dream of creating development and roads and everybody standing on the sidelines clapping is not going to work. So at some stage, we will have to stand in support of our troops and not depict them as killers in Afghanistan. They are not an invading force. They are there doing good work. They need to do better work. And if you ask 100% of Canadian Afghans, why are they supporting the presence of Canadian troops in Afghanistan? But you talk to any of the Islamists, and they will say, get them out because they want the Taliban to take back Afghanistan.
You know, when the Americans first went into Afghanistan, the people of Afghanistan actually welcomed them. There was a window of opportunity that was lost. In fact, all these indiscriminate killings, especially in the south, these massive bombings with, high altitude planes and so on, when you kill civilians, that is what turned the people against the foreign forces. Now, you see, that opportunity has been lost. Now, if you have, the foreign forces are actually acting as a trigger against they're actually acting as a trigger for the resentment of those people. So these forces have not been able to provide any security and support.